Hello and welcome everybody to the fourth episode of a show about basketball. Today I'm joined by the co-host of the Blue Hardwood podcast, also a writer from Mavs and Moneyball. Her name is Lauren Gunn. She's one of the best follows on Mavs Twitter for sure. Definitely has supreme knowledge of the game. Her is at L Gunn with 4 N's, as Brian Zelam loves to say on the pod. It was really cool for me to say that.
Oh man, well that was quite the introduction. Yeah, so I mean you pretty much covered it as far as like my resume, but yeah, all my kind of takes, I pretty much like just a little like background. My whole life I've had season tickets to the Mavs, so it's almost like the Mavs are like a culture in my household. So we followed along through all the tough years, all the good years, from 2006 to 2011. I mean we've been through the roller coaster of Mavs history. So, yeah, anything that comes out of my mouth kind of comes from that experience and just things that I see on TV and in person. But, yeah, I'm a huge fan, and I'm excited to kind of dive a little bit more into Mavs Twitter and get more involved with all the conversations that are being had and just talking with everyone. So, yeah.
That's great because your expertise is definitely needed. So we'll go ahead and jump right into it. We talked a little bit before the first scrimmage game, or no, it was right after the first scrimmage game. I brought up to you, and I brought this up with a few other people before. Seth Curry looks absolutely insane. The only thing about him looking insane, and a lot of Mavs Twitter noticed this yesterday, is Tim Hardaway doesn't look as insane. So when I first brought it up to you, I said, hey, what do you think about this? I think DeLon Wright should start instead of Curry. Let Curry come off the bench with Maxi Kleber, Trey Burke, and that would just be one of the best benches in the league. DeLon Wright is shooting threes with supreme confidence, which is something I never thought I would see. So I'm loving seeing that. But after the second scrimmage game, I'm throwing this at you now. What if it was we had DeLon Wright, Seth Curry, and Kleber come off the bench? Are you ready for this? We had Bobby at starting center.
Oh boy. Okay, so there are a million things that, God, I don't even know where to start. Okay, so with that lineup, my first reaction, I love Bobby, but depending on the matchup, and I'm gonna point out I don't know if you'll remember this moment from the scrimmage, but there was a moment when why am I blanking on who we just played?
Pacers.
Thank you. Indiana's bringing the ball down the court. I want to say like Justin Holiday had the ball. He starts bringing the ball up the court, or the younger one, Aaron. Yeah. And Bobby fouls him because he can't move quickly enough to get back on defense. And they didn't want to have a 4-on-5 situation. And so that's my only concern with Bobby, because when the Mavs throw out that zone, there were a couple of sequences where Justin Holiday and Jakar Sampson hit like mid-range easy looks, short corner and elbow shots right over him, because while he's got that wingspan, he wasn't very mobile and he couldn't defend those shots. So and then even when we played the Lakers and Bobby was in there, the Lakers throw lob after lob after lob to JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard. So if you can't have someone that is super maybe agile and athletic to get up there and try to defend those, that's where you run into a problem. So I do think that there's a time and place for Bobby to get in there, and I think Rip will find those times. Come playoff time, I think we're going to see a lot less of Bobby, just because of some of the teams that are in the playoffs and that we could end up going against. It really it depends, because there are times when Bobby gets out there and it's like you can't stop him. Like he's got good touch and he's great. So I think they really have to pick and choose when to throw him out there. Because to me, it's either like it's perfect and it's just this awesome advantage for us, and then there are other times when I'm pulling my hair out because I can't get with what I'm watching. But with DeLon Wright, so yeah, I was with you. I was like, okay, the first game, Tim was like a non-event. It just kind of was like, and I like the idea of Seth Curry being a playmaker off the bench while also still putting up big shooting numbers. That seems logical to me. However, Seth with Luka and Stan Van Gundy had a little preview on the Mavs, or no, it was on NBA TV. It was on NBA TV before the game. He did a thing where he pointed out something that the Mavs run where they have Seth down in kind of in the lane, and Porzingis will run down, and he doesn't exactly set a screen, but it's almost like an elevator where Seth just runs through and he runs up to the top, and you've got this like two-man game with Luka and Porzingis, but then Seth Curry at the last minute shoots up to the top, and he got a lot of kick-out, easy, wide-open threes. And that works. That's a perfect scenario that works well with those three. Not that Tim couldn't easily slide in there and be that third guy in that little sequence, but Seth is great at that. However, I still think it's hard because I'm like, God, you can't take Seth out of that lineup. Like, he's so good right now. He is just on fire. But we've got to have, not that I don't have a ton of faith in JJ Barea, because I do. I have a lot of faith in him. But Seth is playing at a different level, and he's shooting at a different kind of rate. So if you have him as maybe you've got JJ as your backup point guard or Trey Burke, depending on the game. But if you've got Seth, who's got the ball, mainly the one that's got the ball in his hands, and the backcourt coming off the bench, I think that allows you to match up better against other teams' backup groups.
Definitely.
So it really depends, because what they do with DeLon Wright is interesting. Like I almost think it's kind of like the Bobby situation. Like, there are certain times when you got to throw him out there, and certain times when it's like, well, maybe we need a stronger shooter. Maybe we need someone like JJ Barea or someone like Trey Burke that's more offensive oriented. So it really, to me, like, the Mavs need to be so strategic with their matchups and their lineups. And I think they're going to be really dynamic and change a lot. But one thing that I just have a lot of confidence with this lineup, or with Rick's ability to change the lineups, because the team chemistry is so good. Like, I feel like anyone can play with anyone. So I have a lot of confidence in that. I don't think DeLon should start, but I also wouldn't be mad about Seth coming off the bench, only because I don't think Tim should come off the bench. Like, no. We saw that at the beginning of the year. That doesn't work.
Nope.
So put him in the starting lineup, keep him with Luka and that group, and he'll be good. Seth can be good in any role. So I think that might be, like, if you've got Seth playing 30 minutes a game, whether he's off the bench or starting or whatever, he'll be fine. But I don't think the same is for Tim, and I don't think we can afford to have Seth overshadow Tim. We need everyone to be firing on all cylinders and maximizing in their role. That's just my opinion.
I mean, that's fantastic, but like what you said kind of helps my thought more, because Seth can come off the bench and he can be your number one guy off the bench, whereas DeLon Wright, I don't think DeLon Wright can play well next to Justin Jackson and JJ Barea. It's not necessarily because those guys aren't that good. It's just that DeLon Wright is the kind of guy that needs to be around guys like Luka and around guys like KP and around guys like Tim. And the main thing is, like, you know, Rick Carlisle loves calling timeouts in that first 5-minute span. If DeLon Wright is really, really messing up, like, you can pull him from the game and throw Seth right in and basically not miss a step. You said you saw Trey Burke on the bench and during warm-ups. I didn't see Trey Burke or MKG. I think Trey Burke is another one of those guys you can kind of, like you said, depending on who we play, depending on the matchup, you can kind of just throw him into the starting lineup. If you throw Trey Burke in the starting lineup, if he's capable, if he's ready, there's no reason why DeLon Wright and Seth Curry can't come off the bench with Bobby and Maxey. Like, that's still one of the best benches in the league, especially in the bubble.
Right. Yeah. I mean, my thought. So I feel like some people would be like, "Oh my God, starting Trey Burke? Are you crazy?" But the thing is, I mean, Trey Burke can score. The guy can shoot. He can put the ball in the basket. And when you play with someone like Luka, your game gets elevated. So, not that by any means putting him in the starting lineup is going to make him a star, but he could be productive. He's not going to be a non-event out there. And so if you can put guys that work well with Luka in the lineup, no matter who it is, at any position, that allows you to move someone that's effective like Seth Curry and can create their own shot and play make, to then get moved to the bench. And it's almost like you're self-creating depth by doing that. And that's, like, to me, that's like the Luka effect, that he makes your guys better. So I don't think that would be a terrible idea. I don't know what they're going to do, because I do kind of feel like the right move would be to move Seth to the bench to match up against some of the deeper teams. But then what does your lineup look like? What direction do you then go in? How much does it change depending on the matchup? So I don't know what they're going to do there, but yeah, the way we come out in these scrimmages though, with it's just like, holy crap, like we're not missing. It is just, it's insane to watch. And so that's exactly. So that's why I'm kind of like, do you touch the starting lineup? I don't know, but and that's why I'm like, okay, if they keep the starting lineup, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm not going to be mad about, how can you be mad about that?
No, yeah, for sure.
But your rotation is going to have to be so small because this little bench group that they keep throwing out in these scrimmages that consists of Bobby, Justin Jackson, Berea, DeLon Wright.
So, like, if you watch yesterday's game against the Pacers, our best two players were Maxey and Seth. If you have those guys coming off the bench, then that is incredible if they can keep it up that way. Maxey's been one of the more inconsistent shooters definitely all season. But I mean, it's like you said, depending on the matchup, Bobby or Maxey could definitely get the starting nod over Curry. Maxey's best game this year, well, one of the best Mavs games this year was against the Pelicans, where Maxey started over Curry and absolutely annihilated Zion down low. We're going to talk about the award races. The voting for the award races has been going on since the 21st and will end on tomorrow, the day this will be uploaded, the 28th. We'll go ahead and start. I'll go ahead and give you my most improved, give you my little spiel, and you can tell me what you think after. Okay. So for most improved, I don't know why I think this. Luka is obviously the most improved player. Like,
right.
He went from 26-7 to 29-9-8. He's the most improved player in the league. But because of how the awards work and because of the narrative behind it, I don't think he's going to win it. So my main two other guys are Bam and Brandon Ingram, both first-time All-Stars who absolutely blew up, and they're well deserving of the award. I just don't like. They're well deserving of this award only because Luka is deserving of MVP votes and these guys aren't.
Right.
But I think it should. I've said all year long it was between Ingram, Bam, Luka, and Graham, which Graham definitely falls short of these guys. For me, it's basically a toss-up between Brandon Ingram and Bam Adebayo. I would probably say Bam though when it all came down to it.
Okay, interesting. Do you have? Is there anything specific as to why you say that, or is that just where your gut is telling you based on how things have gone?
I mean, there's no like. He went from being no one really knew about him. He went from like role player to all-star. And like everybody knew about him this year at the All-Star game. He was like the talk of the town for the first two games, or for the first two nights because of what's it called, the skills challenge. He absolutely demolished that. I mean, I don't have his averages pulled up. I probably should have, but he's averaging around like 18, 10, and like was around 5 assists. He was floating around there. That whole team is amazing with player development, and they've done everything exactly correct with him. And I just think he is better than Brandon Ingram, and his team is better than Brandon Ingram's right now. Although I do think Brandon Ingram will eventually end up being the better player. Brandon Ingram got put into like a different situation. You know, he was pretty good on the Lakers, kind of underrated on the Lakers, and then became the number one guy, obviously, when Zion wasn't playing for the first half of the year for the Pelicans. I just think the narrative falls perfectly for Bam to take it.
I see. So I'm right there with you as far as it being between Brandon Ingram and Bam Adebayo. For me, so I'm just going to go ahead and say my pick is Brandon Ingram. And the reason is I totally agree that that Bam went from kind of being a nobody to now being like a player that anyone would want on their team because he is so skilled. Like there's really nothing aside from not being able to shoot a three-pointer. The dude can guard anyone. He can dribble the ball. He's so talented. The reason I chose Brandon Ingram is because from this season to last season, while the Pelicans are by no means an amazing team, he went from playing just under 34 minutes to just over 34 minutes. Like, his minutes played didn't really change. But his points production, he went from 18 points a game to 24 points a game. And his rebounding, the rebounding and the assists didn't go up too much, but the way that they use him in the offense and the level of production that he gives them is a huge increase from last season. Another thing is, for Miami, this summer, Brandon Ingram and Bam are both restricted free agents. And talking to people from different teams and stuff like that, the conversations that I've had, people have been like, oh, I wonder what Miami's going to do. Obviously, they're going to do whatever, like match anything to keep Bam. But would that initial offer be a max contract? I mean, in my opinion, it should be. But when you think about long-term, about what Miami might try and do, I think that's up in the air. Not that New Orleans has that same flexibility, because I don't know that anyone really has New Orleans on their map. No disrespect to Lonzo, Zion, or Brandon Ingram, but I don't think anyone would choose to go there over any of the more obvious options. But it's up in the air of whether or not that initial offer will be a max to Bam. For New Orleans, again, they don't have a lot of flexibility, but it's no question that they're going to max Brandon Ingram out, because they don't really have any other option, and because they know that he's worth that. So for me, the main reason I'm choosing Brandon Ingram is because his minutes didn't really change, but his production did. For Bam, he went from playing 23 minutes a game to 34 and a half minutes a game. Like, that's a huge increase. Yeah. And he went from 9 points a game to 16 points a game, and 7 rebounds to 10 and a half rebounds. So averaging 16 and 10 and a half rebounds, like, holy crap. I mean, that's huge. Yeah. But when the minutes increase is also so significant, I mean, that's kind of what you would expect. So, and maybe not that drastic of a production increase, but you still expect those to go hand in hand. So for me, that's why I chose Brandon Ingram.
That's good. And to touch on your point, you said, like I said earlier, Brandon Ingram got thrown in. He's the guy in New Orleans. Like, Zion might be the best player in 2 years or next year even for them, but Brandon Ingram is the guy right now for New Orleans. Whereas Bam kind of was the guy before, or for them last year, and you kind of saw him trending upward, but they signed a legit superstar in Jimmy Butler. So obviously someone else had to be there to kind of take on that role. To go with both of them to help benefit both of their cases, they both can guard anyone on the court. Well, Ingram is a little, he can't really guard centers, I guess, but they both switch on the perimeter. They both will go down low if you need. So defense didn't really come into play for this one. Next, I have Rookie of the Year. I don't think this is really a debate. It's definitely Ja. Like, Zion was great in his 15 games, but Ja Morant produced all year and is still going to produce these next 8 games, even though it doesn't matter. And then the only other contender even with him was his teammate Brandon Clark. Like, there were some other good rookies. This rookie class was honestly pretty underrated, but Ja Morant was insane, incredibly ran away with it. Brandon Clark has all the advanced stats to back his case up. But I mean, there's RJ Barrett, who had a solid year. Obviously, he's on the Knicks. Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson. God, I'm forgetting Sekou, the youngest player in the league, who had a phenomenal year. But yeah, what do you think about Rookie of the Year?
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't think it's even a question, and I'm all on the Ja train, and I think I'm still even bitter about the 2K cover being Zion. I think that's a little ridiculous. But yeah, I think it's Ja. I'm a big Brandon Clark fan, and I'm excited to see like what he turns into, because I just think his like skill set and mixed with his body type and height is going to be exciting to watch. It's kind of scary. But yeah, as far as Rookie of the Year, Ja all day.
Okay, cool. Don't really have to touch on that one too much then. The next one is I guess I don't know if this is really the big one, because I think it's pretty one-sided. The MVP race, I guess it's come between Giannis, James Harden, and LeBron James. I think LeBron James is the greatest basketball player of all time, so I'm a little biased, but I think Giannis has definitely had the best year. I mean, he went from doing what he did last year, which was basically unanimous MVP, to only like adding Defensive Player of the Year candidacy to his year this year. And the Bucks are the best team in the league. They're definitely way deeper than the Lakers. I just think, I think it's Giannis.
Yeah, I have Giannis too. His stats are just, they're outrageous. And LeBron's stats they're also, especially considering his age, like he had a great year. But the Bucks are on a 70-win pace. They got the best record in the league. And Giannis did all this while playing 5 minutes less a game than LeBron did. So, and LeBron, I think one of the stats that he had that was so high, or like was higher than people expected this year, was his assists per game. I think it was like over 10. It was like 10.7 or 7.
Yep.
Okay, there you go. So that's impressive, but a lot of those assists are just lobs, easy. And so, but it's a little different for Giannis. So I think his assists, the assists that he gets, are maybe a little harder to come by. So, but yeah, just with everything that the team is doing in Milwaukee, he gets my vote.
Yeah, and I think Giannis definitely has like more shooters around him, and but he doesn't really need them. He's so good down low. You don't really need to go down low and dish it out like he was at a different level. And Chris Middleton has played absolutely astounding this year. I don't think he's quite getting the love he deserves.
Nope, never does.
Yeah. Okay. So, Coach of the Year. Who won Coach of the Year last year?
Was it Bud?
Was it Bud? I think it was. Okay. This year I have. So for like the first 50 games, I was dead set on Quinn Snyder. Quinn Snyder's winning Coach of the Year. He completely, like, adding Mike Conley, he didn't do much, but he helped. Revigorating Royce O'Neal to making him like a legit 3-and-D guy definitely helped. But the biggest thing was Bogdanovich coming over to that team and completely changing the offense. I think Quinn Snyder deserved a lot of credit for it. But I think Nick Nurse definitely... he turned Pascal Siakam into a legit superstar. They're still the second best team in the East without Kawhi Leonard. I think this is far and away Nick Nurse. I don't really know if there is another guy that comes close. Nick McMillan has done amazing things in Indiana. And then there's the obvious candidates like Spo and Brad and Rick. But I think Nick Nurse really, really honed in this year. And a lot of people were like, oh, Toronto was a fluke. They had Kawhi, but they actually are still one of the best defensive teams in the league. They still have the crazy ability to switch defend, which a lot of teams don't know how to do yet. And, Fred VanVleet's basically an all-star too. But, yeah, what do you think about Coach of the Year?
I'm right there with you. My vote is Nick Nurse. You touched on a lot of it, but just to reiterate, when you lose someone as big as Kawhi Leonard and the overall team, like the way the team is reacts to that, and their production and wins doesn't change as dramatically as people expected it to, that says a lot about your team and your coaching. And even the Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, they've got guys that even OG, like they've got guys that they just developed. Like they're good, they're strong players. And even pieces like Marc Gasol, Serge Ibaka, who they're not necessarily super young anymore by any means, but they're very useful and they're really important to that team. And so they've got such a good group of guys. As far, even Kyle Lowry is no young buck anymore. No. And so what he's doing with that team and making with that group of guys, I think it's really impressive, and I think he deserves the credit.
Yeah, you touched. So the big thing I think with Nick Nurse, I think the reason why Toronto has seen him coming from afar, because he was on the 905 Raptors, I think their G League team. He won the G League team championship way before he was the year before he was on the Raptors as the head coach, and the Raptors, Usai Ujiri and Nick Nurse specifically have basically been pinnacle pieces for player development. They're up there with the Knicks. They're up there with the Heat. Or not the Knicks. I'm sorry. They're up there with the Nuggets and the Heat in terms of player development, and they've surpassed those guys because Pascal Siakam's 27th pick in the draft. I didn't know who he was. He played on the G League and then absolutely 100% bona fide superstar this year. And you said OG. OG is, he was one of those guys who was developing. Kawhi came and he got hurt, so he didn't play much last year. But this year he's had an absolutely outstanding year. Nick Nurse is just great at figuring out. The league is trending toward 3-and-D guys, big or small, and he has a plethora of them to work with, and he knows exactly how to shake it up. Six-man is definitely the weirdest one. I don't even know who all qualifies, but the three guys I have are Dennis Schroeder, obviously. I think he's probably going to win it. Then I have Mitch Robinson, who came. He didn't come off the bench every game for New York, but he came off the bench most of games for New York, so I'm not sure if he even qualifies. But the dude he has the single season record for field goal percentage in a year this year. So, I mean, definitely deserves it in elite defense. And then I also have Trez, which you could kind of switch Trez and Lou Will because they do the same thing for the same team off the bench. But, yeah, I think Dennis Schroeder is far and away the sixth man of the year. But what do you think?
So for me, it was between Dennis, Lou Williams, and Trez. And not to discredit Lou or Trez, but when you've got two guys from the same team going up for the same award, like how can you have two six men of the year?
Yeah.
Not to take away from the numbers that they put up off the bench, because my goodness, if I could have that in Dallas, yeah. I absolutely would.
Oh, yeah.
But the reason I chose Dennis Schroeder is because mostly because of the team success. Not that OKC is a playoff favorite or anything, but a lot of the reason that team kind of was able to turn things around was the production that Dennis Schroeder was giving them off the bench. I mean, in 31 minutes a game, he put up 19 points and then 4 rebounds, 4 assists, while still shooting 38 from 3 and 47% from the field. So that's a great guy to have coming off your bench. He's been in the six man of the year conversation many times before. But yeah, for a team like the Clippers, when you've got awesome guys coming off your bench, that's all great. But they're the Clippers. They're still successful, and they're still going to be successful with their starting lineup. And I mean, that's just what it is. I don't think OKC is in the same position if they don't have Dennis Schroeder coming off their bench. So that's where it comes what it comes down to for me. And yeah, I think, honestly, I'm not sure if he's won it before, but I think this is his year. I think this should be his year. I want to say maybe like Jamal Crawford or
I don't think
Lou Williams has taken it.
Lou Will won so I think your 3 finalists are the 3 finalists from last year, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, wow.
Dennis Schroeder,
really?
Trez, and Lou Will, I know Trez and Lou Will were in there. But wow. I mean, that's kind of why I think it's Dennis Schroeder. Like, Trez and Lou Will, would they be so Dennis Schroeder backs up Shai Gilgeous and Chris Paul, two of the probably one of the best backcourts in the league. He would definitely come off the bench for that team no matter what, and he would come off the bench for a lot of other teams no matter what. I don't think Trez specifically, I don't think would come off the bench for a lot of teams. He only comes off the bench for the Clippers. Lou Will's kind of a different beast. He is a 6-man. That's been his role. He's won it 3 times. He won it last year. It's time. Maybe it is his award, but it's time for someone else to get it.
I agree with that. I think that's well said.
But I mean, Trez, I don't understand why he even comes off the bench for LA. He's another one of those guys who's restricted at the end of the year. Someone's gonna pay him an ungodly amount, and I don't think the Clippers are gonna match. But I mean, yeah, definitely, it's definitely between those 3. And I wanted to put Lou Will in this, but he's just kind of so obvious that I didn't really want to touch on it. But I mean, he's a walking bucket, and he's obviously gonna miss those first 2 games for, some other reasons that I don't really want to discuss. But he's gonna miss those first 2 games, but I don't really think it's as big of a deal. It's kind of like, if you remember a few years ago when J.R. Smith was playing for China and he came back to the Knicks. And in that first game, he had like 20 points. Because Lou Will's game is literally, he doesn't play defense. He's just going to drive on you and get a bucket in any which way he can. So, Defensive Player of the Year.
I feel like there's a reason you saved this one for last.
Yes. I'm definitely gonna get some flack for this. I don't know where the narrative changed along the year, but lately all I've seen is people saying Giannis. And I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I understand Giannis is an elite defender. But
Mm-hmm.
and I understand what AD is doing in LA. He's pretty much the only real defensive guy they have. But you can't. I wouldn't give it to AD over Giannis. My whole I don't all year. I've looked at every advanced stat and every I don't really do stats and all that, but every single thing tells me that if you are shooting the ball, the one person you don't want in your face, no matter what, is Ben Simmons. And I don't know if I'm just super biased toward the guy or what, but I don't. In a league where Kawhi is load managing, I don't see how Ben Simmons is not the best defensive player in the league. Like, maybe I'm crazy. What do you think?
I don't think you're crazy. Man, that's interesting. I honestly thought you were going to go the AD route.
Haha, I see.
You got me. You got me. So I just straight off the top, my vote is for Giannis. And the reason is, man, honestly, I don't even know what to say about the Ben Simmons thing. But
good.
As far as Giannis, the reason I chose Giannis is because he's just, I mean, obviously the body size, the height, the length, the wingspan, like it's just outrageous. And I don't think that there's anyone he can't guard.
Oh, for sure.
I think the 14 rebounds a game is outrageous. And then, I think it's a little over 1 block a game and 1 steal a game, which those aren't that impressive. But it's like the effect that he has when you watch them is just, to me, there's nothing like that. Like, I think Ben Simmons is a great elite defender, but I think he's going to lock up the person he's guarding. I think
definitely.
Giannis can pretty much, like, not guard, like, 3 people at one time, but the person he's guarding mixed with, like, his length, he can quickly help, and that, it's almost like I'm having trouble explaining it, but if he's guarding one person, you're not going to pass to anyone near him because he's so athletic and long, he's going to take the ball. So that, like, effect, to me, is something it's not going to show up in the stat sheet, but it's incredibly significant. The main reason I chose Giannis is because Milwaukee is they have the best defensive rating in the league by a large margin. It's kind of similar to Dallas and their offensive rating, like how incredible that margin is. So just to kind of put it into perspective, the difference between Milwaukee's defensive rating and the second best defensive rating with the Raptors is the same as the Lakers, who have the 3rd best defensive rating, and Oklahoma City, who has the 9th best defensive rating. So that's a pretty significant jump. And when you look at Milwaukee's roster, they've got Wes Matthews, great defender. The Lopez brothers are decent. Eric Bledsoe's a pretty proven defender. But other than that, I don't think they've got anyone that's like, wow, that's an elite defender. So a lot of that credit to having such an amazing defensive rating, I think, goes to Giannis. And then taking into consideration the 14 rebounds a game, seriously?
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
So to me, that's why I chose Giannis.
Those are amazing points. Only thing though, and Ben Simmons has the same excuse. Ben Simmons is, he is an elite defender. He's an elite perimeter defender. He can guard He can guard down low. He's not a rim protector though. Giannis can be considered a rim protector. But Ben Simmons, his only other real defensive guy on the court with him usually is Joel Embiid, who is one of the best players in the league. So it's like he could also even be in consideration for this award if he ever, stayed in shape. The thing with the Bucks, I believe that Robin Lopez and Brook Lopez are both elite defenders, especially Brook Lopez. Like, he was one of the dark horse defensive player of the year kind of vote getters last year. He's definitely taken a step back this year, But I mean, that's because he has a guy next to him and his brother, who's literally also one of the better rim protectors in the league. So I agree with you 100%. I didn't even know Giannis averaged 14 rebounds. That is insane. But I do think he has a little bit more help down low than Ben Simmons does. Because once Joel Embiid's off the court, I mean, Al Horford's decent, but he's not even what he was a year ago. And that's not good for defense for sure.
You mean he's not worth that contract?
So would you rather pay Kemba Walker 4 years max, I think it was 26, or would you rather pay Tobias Harris and Al Horford $250 million? I mean, it's Kemba.
I would take Kemba, yeah. I can't even believe in, like, looking back in history, I can't even believe that is something that happened with Tobias Harris and Al Horford were signed for those contracts.
I understand that Tobias Harris, because they traded for him, and he was pretty good on the team with Jimmy Butler and them, but I don't understand Al Horford signing. I get it. I understood it on paper, but when I watched the games, like, he's a non-factor. And he definitely belongs off the bench. Shake Milton definitely deserves to start and putting Ben Simmons at power forward. Obviously, they have, Chris Middleton's not a poor defender at all by any means. Mm-hmm. Obviously, they have Wes Matthews and Eric Bledsoe, who are well above average defenders on the perimeter. But you're right. Like, Giannis can literally guard. Like, if Giannis is guarding one dude on the perimeter, he's basically guarding the whole perimeter. He's never just, like, tucked away on defense. He's never hidden on defense. He is the best defensive player on the team. My whole thing is I don't really understand, like, when the narrative switched. Like, for the longest time, it was like Giannis wasn't even in Defensive Player of the Year talks. It was AD and it was Ben Simmons and it was Kawhi Leonard. That's all I saw. And then out of nowhere, everyone's just like, "Oh no, it's Giannis," which I get, be honest, but still,
I think. I mean, this is just me speculating. I think the reason Ben Simmons, not that he's not in the conversation, because that's not the case, but the reason it shifted to Giannis specifically is because I think, Philly, I think they're having an incredibly underwhelming season because of the Al Horford fit. I think it's completely Al Horford to blame because that just threw their whole thing off. And so if Philly was, I don't know, second or third in the East. Wait, what are they? Are they like fourth or fifth? I think they're fourth.
I think they're fifth.
Okay.
They're all
they're sixth. They're sixth.
Yeah.
Jesus.
3 through 6 is all kind of like up there though. Like Miami, Boston, Pacers, and Sixers are all like tied basically.
Well, they're exactly tied with Indiana at fifth. But I think a lot of people expected them to be anywhere from 2, 3, 4.
I definitely did.
And so because of that, I think people have been like, oh, well, we're not going to necessarily give Ben Simmons the attention. Not that Ben Simmons doesn't get loads of attention, but they're like, oh, well, if the team's not doing that well, why is that? Oh, okay, well, I guess he's not as good of a defender as we thought. Whatever. Sometimes people just don't look at the numbers. And to kind of add to your point, Ben Simmons' defensive advanced stats may just, like the numbers, may just be better than Giannis's numbers. That may be... And my argument, the thing behind my argument is the defensive rating as a team. And so, sure, that may come down to those guys that you mentioned before, not to go back into it, but that may have a lot to do with that. But I think because Philly's performance this season has been underwhelming and because Milwaukee's has been so incredible, everyone wants to talk about Giannis. And they will continue to do so. But yeah, my argument really just stands on that defensive rating as a team, and just giving him the majority of the credit for that. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I wonder what's going to happen there because I think like that is one of the awards that I'm like, I don't think I think that one's one. It's not clear, but it's like there's a lot of like the votes are going to be interesting to see because I think it could go a lot of different ways.
Yeah, like a guy we didn't even talk about is the guy who's won it the last 2 years, in Rudy Gobert. He was having one of the most elite. He was having one of his better elite defensive seasons than he was having with the last 2 years. But I think media drives this. I don't think media is going to look on him very highly because of everything that's gone down the last 4.5 months. Even though I don't think it was all his fault. Like he's just one of those guys. Like you could throw him in. Kawhi's a guy you could throw in the conversation. I mean, it's like you said, Defensive Player of the Year is the most like, who knows, because
right.
the way the votes are going to be all placed. But I do think it'll eventually end up being Giannis, which I don't think anyone has won MVP and Defensive Player of the Year since Michael Jordan. So that would be right.
Wow. Oh God, I don't know. That's the type of stuff that my brother would know and I would not know.
Moneyball, and definitely check out the Blue Hardwood podcast. I listen to it on Spotify. You can find it anywhere else, though, I assume. Thanks again.